family-owned shop in Loganville, Soesby's Garage for all your automotive repair needs. We service all makes and models, foreign and domestic. We repair engines, alternators, brakes, alignments, AC systems, and more, using certified technicians with over 90 years of combined experience. We also offer same-day service for some repairs. Soesby's Garage, 200 Bay Creek Road in Loganville. Dependable, honest, and fair. Look us up on Google or Facebook. We'll take good care of you.
Broadcasting live from the Subaru of Gwinnett studio inside the Sonesta Gwinnett Place Atlanta Hotel. It's time for Case in Point, presented by Paradigm Security Services. We are the cornerstone of security in the Southeast.
Hey everybody, welcome to Case in Point, presented by Paradigm Security Services. I'm your host, Rick Strawn, President of Paradigm Security Services, and we are excited to be with you again today on Business RadioX. We're coming to you live from the Subaru of Gwinnett Atlanta studio, located in the beautiful Sonesta Gwinnett Place Atlanta Hotel in Duluth, Georgia. Each week, as always, we plan to feature businesses in the Atlanta area, especially those that serve Gwinnett County and our general area around us. While all businesses have security concerns, not all are about physical security, and we'll touch on that and all related aspects of security through the course of each show. Our guest today, I want to welcome back Robert Long. He's the Vice President of Economic Development with Forsyth, and that's that's part of the chamber.
Correct.
Forsyth, and with his new position as VP of Economic Development with Forsyth, got a lot going on in Forsyth County.
We do. I mean, our activity is pretty strong. It's a little slower than last year, but overall our activity is very active. We have a very active pipeline of opportunities looking in Forsyth, so it's a very exciting year so far.
Well, you know, with all that stuff going on in Forsyth, there's so much growth. I mean, that is just one of the places that's really growing. In fact, I tried to get my wife back 30 years ago when we were building a home in Gwinnett to consider Forsyth, because being from Roswell, I knew where the next growth spurt was going to be after Gwinnett. After Gwinnett.
It would have been a great investment.
Yeah,
30 years ago.
I'm telling you, and that's what I tried to convince her of, but it just that didn't work. Mm-hmm. But just kind of so everybody out there knows, the Cumming-Forsyth Chamber not only serves the business community as a traditional chamber, but it also the lead for entity for economic development and tourism.
Correct.
And as Forsyth County is one of the fastest growing counties in the U.S., it has the #1 school system in Georgia and is the most affluent county in Georgia.
Sure.
Well, Forsyth County, as we said, is one of the fastest growing counties in the U.S. What has precipitated this growth, and how are you handling it?
Sure. Well, I will say, and I don't know if you're aware, my master's degree is actually in demography, population studies. So, the stuff that's going on right now in Forsyth County fascinates me because it is definitely a shift that is going on. And it's not just on the workforce population, but it's also impacting our new 5-year plan and what we want to do as a community. But it's just a really exciting time to be in Forsyth. I mean, I know there's a lot of comparisons with us with Gwinnett, 20 years ago when they had this massive uptick in growth and, diversification of their, population. And I guess part of that is, I think Forsyth County is also looking at, what other communities who have experienced this have done and how we can do it a little different. I think it's an exciting time to be in Forsyth.
Well, and as counties grow and as the demographics change and as the growth moves to different areas, it's great to have models such as Gwinnett that you can kind of look at, model, do things some the same way, some different. Sure. And tweak things to where it fits your.
You're right. I mean, there are counties, including Gwinnett near us, that have been there, done that, and so they can definitely be an opportunity for us to learn, and that's always, I think, not a bad thing to do.
Well, no, because if you don't learn something when you're doing that, then you're going to be behind.
Sure. To
start off with.
And I think you can also see where decisions you make as a community today impact your community down the road, 10 years, 20 years, and that how you had a decision you thought was a good decision, and like in Gwinnett, they can probably look back 20 years ago that, we wish we could have done things a little different, and we try to use our crystal ball as well to, what are the things we're doing today when it comes to our Unified Development Code, to our, the standards when it comes to building and, the landscaping and on particularly our corridors, what are we doing today to make that, the structures, things that are built today look good 10 years from now, 20 years from now as a community?
Well, and, using that analogy, the canvas, if you will, of Forsyth County was, for the most part, pretty blank. It was, the old style Forsyth. Everything had been there for years,
very
just
rural.
The way it was, very rural. And as you change, and we're going to talk a little bit about your 5-year plan, that as you move forward, then you've got just your own canvas that you can pretty well paint it the way you want to.
Sure. Well, the one thing I'll say is many people may not realize, up through the 80s, Forsyth County was historically one of the poorest counties in the entire state of Georgia. Even though we were part of Metro Atlanta, we were poor, and that had to do with the lack of interstate. And also the lack of rail. We're one of the only counties in the core metro area that has no rail, and with no rail historically meant we didn't have any industry.
Exactly.
So we were very small, very rural. We're a little oddball in that we only have one city, which is the city of Cumming, and that one city is fairly small. And so the bones of the city of Cumming were small compared to some of the other redevelopment efforts that are going around here. They have a lot more to work with. Whereas the city of Cumming, they're looking at developing a whole new town center, more similar to what Swanee did, in that they just don't have the bones of the current downtown, which is basically becoming an administrative center. They're looking at, we could create a new town center, to create that downtown environment. And they're actually doing that right now.
And your one major business for so many years was really the lake.
Yes.
That's what generated everything. That's why people came to and through Forsyth, was going to Lake Lanier.
Sure, and I will say our side of Lake Lanier, I think, developed first because if you were in the
Absolutely.
Atlanta, our side of the lake was easier to access than the Hall County, and I think we would same thing. We had that crystal ball. We do things differently today on our side of Lake Lanier, whereas you were Hall having their development come later. You have Lanier Islands and more marinas and things that are going on the Hall County side than ours, and so we're actually going to be trying to play catch up on our side. And I think there's also some great redevelopment opportunities on our side of Lake Lanier because you had a lot of these weekend homes that were built in the 60s and 70s, very large lots that some of that could be, assembled and turned into a nice, some nice redevelopment opportunities on our side of Lake Lanier.
Now, I guess Baldridge is coming.
Correct.
And so that was really the only major marina that y'all had was Baldridge, and
At the time.
and it was a major.
Sure,
marina,
and we
still
do
is.
in northern part of the county. We do have Port Royal now. It's been a great success, but I think they're with having over 1,000 miles of shoreline, I think we really hundreds of miles of shoreline. I think there's some great opportunities for us to grow that more. I know one of the opportunities we've looked at is with the city of Cumming, as they have a whole peninsula called Mary Alice Park. That's
Right.
I think that's just really prime for a redevelopment opportunity, and that's one of the things that was pointed out in our new 5-year plan.
Yeah, and they do a lot of the swimming events and stuff from Mary Alice. I know when I was up there at the Coast Guard Auxiliary for so many years, we did a lot of activities around Mary Alice, working with the different swim teams
Sure.
and the county.
But you
and
basically
Corps
have
of
a
Engineers.
100-acre peninsula that's at this point really undeveloped. It's really a blank canvas. I think that would be a fantastic opportunity for a resort conference center type of development with a marina, mixed-use development. I mean, it could be turn into a fantastic opportunity that we were going to look at evaluating what our opportunities are there.
Absolutely. I think it would be an awesome thing. I know Forsyth was recently recognized for having the fastest Asian population growth in the U.S. How are the demographics changing within your community? Because they're changing all over.
Sure. I mean, yeah, it's just unique to us. I mean, all the counties in the metro core are experiencing particularly a lot of immigrant population and growth that are going on in their communities. I think it's right now more pronounced right now, and just the volume of the growth that's happening in Forsyth. As a community, we're about 19-20% minority. Of that, about 12-13% of that is the Asian population, and of that, it's really the Indian population, and then to a certain lesser extent the Korean population. And the one thing I will say with the Asian population is this is a very affluent, highly educated Indian community that's really driving our tech sector, our technology, as to a lesser extent our healthcare. And so it is, in fact, I would argue that our technology that's still very burgeoning in the southern part of our county, it would not be where it is right now without that Indian influence that moving into our community. And to that point, we recently had Patel Brothers just open up what is now currently the largest Indian grocery store in the entire state of Georgia that has opened up in our community. I think it's going to be a fantastic asset to our community, but it's not just a grocery store. They developed the whole shopping center, so it's going to be basically they have opportunities for 20 additional businesses that are focused on the Indian community to co-locate with them. I actually it's a company called Raja Food out of Chicago that's the developer, and I had a chance to meet with them, and they're just fantastic people to do with. So I'm really excited. They just opened it just a short time ago. Our Senator Dolezal was there for that grand opening, and it's just a really exciting development for us.
Well, and one of the things we kind of talked about before the show is, the importance of taking these communities, which have a tendency to kind of become very cultural within their culture. That's their primary objective, is developing within their culture and getting them to expand and expand their business reach, I guess,
Sure.
to the rest of the county is a very important thing. And I know that's what your position and the position of the chamber is let's make this inclusive to where
Sure.
we help you.
And it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight.
Absolutely.
Because like anything else, you have to develop a relationship, and then relationship matures, then you're able to talk more freely. The international is run by me out of the Chamber of Commerce, and we do have a lot of international investment in the community. But I've tried to specifically get engaged with the Indian community. I know I attended the Indian Film Festival not too long ago. Obviously we were involved with this grand opening for the Patel brothers. But I think our goal is to try to look for those opportunities to engage that community, and then to continue to try to grow that relationship. And as I said, it doesn't happen overnight. Fortunately, we do have a fairly quite a few folks that are in that community. We do have a relationship that's using that. We're leveraging that to try to interact with those folks as much as we can. And to that point, one of the things we did earlier this year, actually, we have our international engagement group that does quarterly meetings, and we had a program specifically in Q1 of this year that focused on the burgeoning Indian business community, and that turned into a very nice program. We got some nice exposure in our local media over it, but it's not something like we're one and done. This is an ongoing process.
Oh, no, it takes time to develop trust. It takes time to develop that synergy, and I know that similar with Gwinnett County, especially within the CIDs, is in particular that I'm familiar with, that the push is really there and strong to help these people out, so that and help them understand that by opening up and being more diverse in your clientele, your customer base, that it actually helps you to grow a lot.
Sure.
And so the county benefits, the business benefits, and it's just an overall
one thing
win-win.
we do as a chamber, we do a little bit of everything. So we're dealing with your traditional economic development, going after industrial distribution, office, but we also, as a chamber, we do retail as well. And so oftentimes when I meet with new retail companies that are interested in community, and they sometimes will ask me that very question, like, what do we need to do to be successful in Forsyth County? And one of the things I tell them is, there's very few businesses that are doing a good job of targeting and marketing to that growing minority population in general. And if you can do that and do it successfully, particularly if you look at our expected demographic change over the next couple of decades, then you're going to be more successful as a business. And I would assume as a business, money's green no matter who's coming in your door. And with that becoming a larger percentage of our population, it would make a whole lot of sense as a business owner to see what you can do to make inroads. I know I met with a jewelry store recently, and I asked that same question. So I said, maybe you want to think about offering some lines that caters to that community, because that's going to help you as a business be more successful.
Well, you bring up a very good point, and I think a lot of people miss that. It's not just about the Asian community reaching out and being inclusive. It's also about the rest of the businesses.
Your existing businesses that have been there for many years,
exactly,
right?
Reaching out to them and working together with them and seeking their business and seeking to help them.
Sure.
So it's a two-way street,
Sure.
very much.
And one thing I'll also mention, we have our, we had a very exciting announcement just a couple of weeks ago with Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan. He was kind enough to be part of our ribbon cutting for Digital Ignition. Digital Ignition has been and still is a co-working space. And with that space, probably 70% of the people who are in that, using that space as co-working space, are people who were of Indian descent, who were in the technology sector, took a separation package. They're entrepreneurs, and one thing I've found is generally the immigrant population, the entrepreneur spirit is much more prevalent than the native-born population, and so our digital ignition co-working space would not be where it is right now without that community. And that, as a side note, that we had him in specifically is we are announcing a new relationship with digital ignition with Georgia Tech with what's called with ATDC, which is the business incubator for Georgia Tech. And basically, we're announcing a new relationship. So we'll still have the co-working, but now we have that layer of the incubator. And the incubator means we're bringing in levels of services when you need accountants, you need attorneys, expertise, marketing expertise. 'Cause a lot of times these people have great ideas, but they've never run a business before. And how do you take that business to the next level? And Georgia Tech, through ATDC, is going to provide those resources. They already have office hours every week now to help those folks be successful. And I think it was just a fantastic announcement. We were really delighted to have the Lieutenant Governor in town for that.
Well, and it's all about, you've got great ideas. It's all about, you may not have a clue of how to actually make it happen, but there's a lot of people around you that do.
Sure.
So it's working with those people, and my experience is, like here in Gwinnett, you've got people, especially through the chamber, that are more than happy to step up and help you to make that idea come to reality. Forsyth County. Now, we talked about a little earlier about the school system, and it's an outstanding school system, I'll say that. What is the Forsyth County School doing to balance the growth and equality?
Well, one of the issues you have as a community when you're growing, you end up having an overcrowding situation before you're able to bring that new school online to relieve that. And at least for us, as soon as you build that new school, it's basically already practically full, and so we're definitely it's a process. We did open 2 brand new high schools this last cycle, so we went from 5 high schools to 7. We opened our 6th traditional high school, which is Denmark High School, and say they start with the junior and sophomore, and then they'll build up to the senior class over the next couple of years. And then one of the other things that was very exciting, they opened up what's called the Alliance Academy for Innovation. It is our first countywide high school. It's not a magnet high school in the traditional sense that people may be familiar with, but they have some very unique pathways that Alliance Academy is offering that is not replicated elsewhere. And sometimes these programs, there's a more capital cost associated with developing that curriculum into the program to do it successfully that would be very difficult for a community to replicate. So, for example, they have an aviation pathway. Well, when you're looking at flight simulators, to support students who are interested in becoming a pilot, that's very expensive, and so we have that there at that school. We have a mechatronics program, which I personally is very excited about because when you talk to our local manufacturers, you have very much an aging workforce when it comes to the maintenance positions, which are people who have that electromechanical inclination. They were expecting about 40 kids with this very first year. They ended up with over 100, and I think that has to do a lot with our efforts over recent years. Where we've had a national manufacturing day where we actually have these high school kids get into manufacturers, and over the course of the day they get to do a tour of 4, and they get to see what a modern manufacturing plant is. And oftentimes their vision in their head of what they think a manufacturer versus it is today, it's pretty exciting because you have companies that are they've implemented robotic cells. Well, a lot of these kids are on the robotics team, and they get to see a real-world application how those robots are being implemented in a real-life situation through manufacturing. The other program that I'm really excited about the Alliance Academy is the cybersecurity. To my knowledge, we're only the 2nd high school-level cybersecurity program in Metro Atlanta, and that's a very exciting program for the growth of our technology sector. Because oftentimes the folks, right now, tight labor market across the, not mention Metro Atlanta, really around the country at this exact moment. People are looking at that, not the current workforce, but also that pipeline. What is the pipeline in your community for us to be successful long-term in your community? And having these pretty exciting programs at the high school level that are feeder programs for Lanier Tech and UNG, University of North Georgia, that can then turn into ultimately employees is very exciting.
Well, I had Melvin Everson on here not long ago with Gwinnett Tech, and one of the biggest things that I think is important nowadays is to get the information out there that it's not so much necessarily a 4-year college degree that some kids want. I mean, it's not that's not their bag. That's not their forte. And the idea of being able to develop these skills and, welding, anything. But like you say, the electronics, getting into this area instead of focusing on that, the need is so great for
Well,
these
the one
companies
thing
coming in.
you've seen, it's not just as new. This has been happening for decades.
Absolutely.
You know, mommy and daddy has told little Johnny they need to get a 4-year college degree.
Yep. You can't get anywhere if you don't have 4 years.
And nothing against those 4-year institutions, but there are some fantastic opportunities with just an associate's degree. And so I think now that there's been lots of articles in recent years with the people graduate with just a tremendous amount of student loans that's going to take them
Exactly.
likely decades to pay off. People are thinking, well, if I went into this welding program, I could probably go for free, get real life work experience while I'm pursuing that program, and graduate with a guaranteed job. In some cases, if you're with overtime, you're making 6 figures as a welder. And I think folks are starting to understand that 4-year colleges has a place, but there are some fantastic opportunities with us, with Lanier Tech or the other technical colleges in Georgia. And I think folks are starting to understand that. And even like with the technology in some of those companies, and oftentimes, they don't really care if you have a degree or not. That they want you to demonstrate that you can do the coding that they're looking for you to do. And if you can get the associate's degree and then get the certification associated with that, then they're more willing to hire you, and they aren't necessarily looking for, or I guess it may be a preference, but it's not a requirement anymore. So I think even a lot of the companies are starting to understand that they need to broaden their horizons as well.
Well, and a lot of the companies are willing to get in there and, like you say, pay for it with the idea that you're going to come to work for them. They'll train you to do what they need,
Sure.
which is exactly what some of these kids need, and it piques their interest. That's where their desire is. Their desire is maybe not to be a doctor or a lawyer or something like that, which we need, but we also need all of these people in these technical.
Sure, and of course, I have 2 daughters, 13 and 16. I've been trying to let them know that I want you to think about what you'd like to do, and then we'll work on what you need to get there.
Absolutely.
That may or may not involve a 4-year college degree. So I'm starting to do job shadowing with my oldest daughter, looking for opportunities local for her to be exposed to some of our local companies in our community. But then I said, at the end of the day, you may say this is not for you, and that's still a learning process, because you and I probably both know folks who pursued a degree, and then after they got the degree, that they really didn't like what they were doing.
They work in a totally
then they go back to
different
school.
Yep.
And so I think having a better clue for what you would like to pursue, and then how do you get there, I think is a fantastic. I know one of the very exciting things we're working on right now is a new partnership with the school system, where we're going to be funding a position. So it'll be a position that'll basically be a coordinator position between the business community and the school system. So it'll be a chamber employee. That'll be, we're going to be, we're working on the job description now. We'll be advertising that position very soon. But but it goes back to having a dedicated person who basically is that pathway between the business community and the school system, creating those opportunities for interaction, creating those opportunities for internships, summer jobs, and so forth, so that when these kids do maybe go off to school, they've developed a relationship with an existing employer in Forsyth County, and they know there's an opportunity for them to be employed after they finish school. Oftentimes, kids go off to school, they don't come back. And what can we do to develop those relationships while they're in high school, so they know there are opportunities, and they've developed some relationship with some of our existing employers. So we're pretty excited about this new program, and the fact that we're partnering and co-funding the position with the school system. I think it's just very exciting. So I'll stay tuned for that. I'd love to come back at a future point, and talk more about that once we get this person hired, and have a much better feel for how they're going to do those interactions with the school system.
Well, are any of them STEM-based high schools that you've started? That's still in the works.
Like I said, there are many of the schools that have a STEM a curriculum, and we do have one STEM academy, which is associated with Forsyth Central High School. Mm-hmm. Our new high school I just mentioned, Alliance Academy, there are lots of schools around us, like including Gwinnett. They have a school for science and math, and it's a magnet school focused just on that. We decided we didn't want to take that route. We wanted to be a little broader in our perspective, so we don't have that true magnet school, but we do have that program that does touch base. And of course, like I said, most of our schools have a STEM component. Obviously, with us having the most educated workforce, in our community, and those obviously have kids in our school system. They have high demands and expectations for their kids, and many of these, as I said, already are working in the science and technology fields. I think there's a great opportunity. I said Forsyth Central is our STEM academy, but I think all our schools have a STEM component in Forsyth County.
Fantastic. Well, you recently completed an economic development strategic plan. What were the findings, and what kind of recommendations did y'all come up with?
Sure. We work with a company out of Austin, Texas called TIP Strategy. We worked with them for upwards of probably 8-9 months to develop this new plan. We were very inclusive in, involving the schools, involving UNG, Lanier Tech, Forsyth County, Board of Commissioners. We wanted to cast a wide net, because at the end of the day, this is not the Chamber's economic development plan. It is the community's economic development plan. So we wanted to make sure that we had the right people at the table to be part of the conversations to help shape this plan. And at the end of the day, our plan is really kind of twofold. One, we think there's a huge opportunity in the southern part of town to continue to grow that tech sector in our community, that white collar corporate solution headquarters type of opportunities. And at the same time, even though that's been our strongest industrial base, the land that we have remaining in South Forsyth is really becoming less and less conducive for industrial development. Industrial flex buildings have been our bread and butter, but the cost of land has gotten to the point where it's not as conducive. So, one, we're looking at developing a new industrial area in the northern part of the county. So we have developed a implementation committee, and underneath that we have several subcommittees. One of those is a development committee, and that development committee is exploring where can we develop a new industrial area, what is the role the county can play to make that happen when it comes to road, water, sewer improvements, those public improvements to make that happen, so we can partner with the developer to start developing that in the area. At the same time, in South Forsyth, I think we're really poised to go after some low-rise, mid-rise office product, 3-4 stories. We don't have a lot of that in our community now, but with the getting ready to be the grand opening of the Halcyon mixed-use development right there at Exit 12, and we can have they do have plans for a freestanding office building. That's going to be a step in the right direction. And at the same time, if you're going vertical with your construction over 3-4 stories, and you're able to mitigate that cost per acre, and then I think it becomes much more conducive for that office product in our community. We're not known as an office market, and it's going to take us a while to get there. But our idea is, the Halcyon, use that as leverage to have those conversations with developers on the office side, to look at those opportunities in South Forsyth. And then I said, we've already got a development committee already in place now that's looking for opportunities for industrial development in the northern part of the county. Well,
I think as transportation, opens up, you've got, of course, 400. That was one of the best things ever happened.
That was the game changer for Forsyth County.
And there's going to be more opportunities. I think eventually there's going to be some type of a rapid transit.
Sure. Well, one of the things we actually had Secretary Chow in town, last year for a very large announcement with basically we're going to be building what's going to be a Peach Pass lane, new lanes. It's not taking over existing lanes. It's new construction of lanes. That'll end in Forsyth. So it'll be all through North Fulton. It'll end at Exit 12. And that'll basically be a Peach Pass as well as BART, Bus Rapid Transit. And for us right now, we don't have density to probably justify the extension of light rail up into Forsyth County. That may happen at some point in the future. But the thing for us is to get people who they can come to Exit 12, hop on the bus, park their vehicles, take that bus on a very dedicated, lane that'll get them down to the North Springs, station, and then they can take MARTA in the rest of the way. I think, the one thing I think that did come out of the bridge collapse on 85, it really did open up people's eyes that we really do need, as a metro area, we do need to have much more of a strategic goal for how we want to develop mass transit. And mass transit does not necessarily mean a bus
rail. Or rail.
It can be lots of different things.
Absolutely. And
then particularly right for us, when you couple like the automated driving vehicles, I think that is a great application when you have a dedicated lane, for that type of product, service. That's a great application. So, with North Fulton and the technology we have in South Forsyth, why don't we partner together to make that a smart mobility lane where we could have test new technologies on that lane as well.
Well, there's just so much development. It's just the future is there, and it's just going to be here before you know it. We already talked about the Lieutenant Governor coming in, but one last question. Forsyth County is one of the most affluent counties in the U.S., as you mentioned a while ago. What does this actually mean for the community of Forsyth County?
I tell people, when you're saying you're the most affluent county, that into itself does not mean anything. But what is inferred from that does mean something. Right now, we are the 16th most affluent county in the United States. We have a median household income now of over $100,000, and we're moving up. I find that personally a fascinating statistic when you think of Washington, D.C., Boston, San Francisco, L.A., Chicago, New York. For us to be the 16th most affluent county in the United States is a fantastic stat that most people don't think of when they think of Georgia. You think of Forsyth County in particular. But it has to do with us having the most educated workforce. Right now we're tied with Fulton County for the most educated. We have 50.2% of our populations have a college degree. But with this new census, we will definitely be the number one. We'll be moving upwards on that chart. And so when you have educated workforce of folks that live in your community, I think they have certain demands and aspirations in your community, and particularly for us to grow the tech sector, that goes hand in hand with a very educated workforce. And so the affluence, I said, by itself does not mean anything, but I think it does impact your education. We would not have, if we weren't the affluent county, we would not have the number one school system. I would easily argue that's the number one reason why people want to come to Forsyth if they have kids, is the school system. That drives the educated workforce. That creates an opportunity for us as a community to create opportunities for these folks to live and work in our community. So we're working on the work side. We're working on that product development side. But you start to see how this all kind of starts to work together.
Well, back in the day, the main thing was if you had, the businesses there, the workers would come. Well, the way that it really generates today is if you've got a good population of the people that are qualified, the businesses come.
That is true. Kind of done a flip. And the one thing I will say right now, there's been a lot of decisions that have happened recently around Metro Atlanta that goes to what can we do to attract that younger workforce, and the needs and wants of that younger workforce is dramatically different from my generation.
Absolutely.
You have folks that are coming out of school, they decide where they want to live, and then they try to find a job. That was never the case. You found the job and you followed and moved to where the job was. And so I think that's one of the reasons I think it's very important for our Halcyon project to be a success, because I think we can leverage that to develop additional mixed-use developments of maybe not that scale, because that's pretty large. But the whole idea is let's create these walkable areas. We have a fantastic Big Creek Greenway. There's other things that are further up the Greenway that we can maybe have some undeveloped land that we can continue to grow and go after additional mixed-use opportunities to create those live-work environments that the young folks like, but at the same time a lot of empty nesters like. A lot of the folks who don't want the yard anymore, their kids are off in college, they really want the same thing. They want that walkability. So if you go after one, you really get the other. I think that's been the what's happened with the other developments around us.
Oh, I totally agree. Well, Robert, we could probably go on here for an hour talking about Forsyth County and the different growth. And I think it's really important that Gwinnett and Forsyth, basically, it's important that they work together because they're sister counties. They're right here. They're both growing. Gwinnett continues to grow like crazy. And Forsyth, with the growth and changeover from the rural, totally rural, to getting so much more of the business and the industrial and stuff. And it's just so important that we all work together in this area.
No, I agree. I mean, I try to have a good relationship with all of my neighbors.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I want to thank you a bunch for being here again.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me.
I want to throw a little hello in there for Soulsby's Garage, who sponsors us. I know one of the things is, that I like about them is the dependability, the honesty, and the fairness. And one of the things that I'll point out is if someone has a car or something that they want to get checked out, they're thinking about buying, you can't take it to a better place because they will do a 100% bumper-to-bumper check on it for you. We were just looking at a car that we were looking at in Marietta for a patrol car. Took it to him. My guy that was driving it, my operator, said, "Oh, this is fantastic. It's great." He got there and he gave us 3 pages of the reasons why we didn't want to buy that car. So that's, again, I think he charges like $85 to somebody to do that. So it's awesome. So if you want somebody that's really honest, reliable, take a look at Soulsby's Garage at 200 Bay Creek Road in Loganville, Georgia. And their number is 678-825-2127. But I want to thank everybody for joining us on Case in Point, presented by Paradigm Security Services. Remember, you can join us live every Wednesday at 11:30 in the morning, or you can listen to our show anytime you want, including this one, by going to businessradiox.com, clicking on the Gwinnett Studio, and then click on Case in Point. Join us next week at 11:30 when we'll talk with business leaders about their businesses and related security issues in today's world. Thanks again to my guest, Robert Long, and for our producers, Mike and Trey. I'm Rick Strawn, and remember, at Paradigm Security Services, we cover more than just your assets.